We have a really special treat for you today. So many of us here in Middle Tennessee grow our gardens in the shade because we have so many trees, and I am in the garden of Cornelia Hall. And Cornelia, tell me a little bit about how you got started in the hosta gardening end of things.
I was introduced to hostas through a wayside catalog that featured fragrant hostas, and I think I ordered everything on the page and have been growing since and have really enjoyed the fragrant hostas.
Right. How did the garden start?
It was the fragrance. The garden had started with roses, and I grew the ones that had the nice fragrance,
Sure.
Mr. Lincoln and such. And then as the shade encroached upon that, then I started looking for something to provide the fragrance in the shade.
Sure. So the roses, the trees eventually outgrew the roses.
Yes.
The roses went by the wayside, and now you've got this.
And wayside
and wayside introduced you to these magnificent hostas and ferns and all of the other things. Now, how many varieties of hostas do you have here in the garden?
Oh, 800 plus.
800 plus varieties of hostas. So if you want to become a collector, you really can get deep into it. You start with one. But, well, certainly out of all of those 800, you have to have a few favorites.
Yes.
And maybe some that really perform well here in Middle Tennessee. What would some of those be?
Well, the fragrant ones do perform well here because they come from the southern part of China, so they will take the heat. They do like a lot of water.
Right.
And so they're good ones. And also the group that is now known as Tetrapods that have a thicker leaf.
Right.
You may feel the leaf and it feels like rubber. Those are the ones you want to start collecting and adding to your garden. If the leaf is very tissuey or thin, you don't want it because it won't stand up in this heat.
Right. So when you talk about fragrant ones, I know of one called Fragrant Bouquet.
Yes.
That's a really good one. What are some of the other ones that have a nice fragrance and perform well here?
Well, out of Fragrant Bouquet, we have guacamole, which a lot of people are familiar with.
Right.
Avocado, fried green tomatoes, fried bananas.
Right.
Hybridizers are hungry people.
Exactly, exactly. And some of these have been bred out of those plants by hybridizers. Other ones sort of occur naturally.
In nature.
And that's what we call a sport. Yeah. And those of us who collect plants, we have this activity that we call sport fishing sometimes. And that doesn't mean fishing with a rod and reel. That means going to the nursery and looking, or going through people's gardens and looking for plants that have sort of occurred naturally, but maybe are unique and different. I grow the whole group of guacamole hostas and all of its compatriots. And certainly they're some of the best in my garden, just as far as vigor. And they're readily available, so people can find those on the market. Some new favorites may be some of these with the red stems. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we're familiar with coleus that have the red up into the leaves, and that is what the hybridizers of hostas are trying to accomplish. They're bringing the red up the stem, and it will be very pale or it may be very dark red, and then they're trying to get it on into the veins of the hosta leaf.
And this is a variety called Miss Ruby, correct?
Yes.
So is this one that's readily available or more of a collector's plant?
It's a new one, so you can you'll have to order this one. You won't find it locally probably, but it's available through a lot of nurseries.
So the hope is then that eventually that red will come right on up into the leaf.
Yes.
One of the largest hostas in your garden is sort of a new variety. Tell me about this plant.
This is Empress Wu. I have seen a photograph of the originator who was about 6 feet tall, and his plant was as tall as he.
So this is absolutely one of the largest hostas available on the market at this time.
It is, it is.
And it looks like it's doing pretty well here in our southern climate.
It is. It has a thick leaf. Get used to feeling your leaves when you go shopping.
Right.
And it will be restrained by being in the pot versus being in a nice bedding soil.
Sure.
It has a lot of substance, so it will withstand the heat. It has a wax on it, so it's going to look bluer in the early part of the year than it will later in the year.
Sure.
But it's a wonderful hosta. It's new on the market.
Right. And so at the opposite end of the extreme then, we have these tiny little miniatures. And you can see these leaves are barely as big as my fingernail. And you have quite a collection of miniatures.
I do.
And this, I think, is just proof positive that no matter where you live or where you garden, even if you live in an apartment and only have a shady balcony, you can still grow some of these hostas. And the difference in the size is just amazing. In fact, the leaf of Empress Wu is larger than the entire pot that this other little...
This is Tears of Joy.
Tears of Joy, this tiny little one here. Growing with a little companion plant, a little acorus, a little gold-leafed acorus, but a really nice representation of the extreme variation in size. It seems to me that one of the most eye-catching hostas that you have is Atlantis, and it also seems to be really vigorous.
It is vigorous. It's wonderful because of the yellow, and that yellow will draw your eye across the garden, and then also the waviness of the leaf and structures that the leaf forms.
Yeah, really nice texture and architectural value to that one.
It's an upright growing hosta, where a lot of them mound over.
Sure. So I know that one of the features that we've kind of been talking about of these various hostas is this new sort of wavy-edged leaf that a lot of the hybridizers are working on, and this plant is a beautiful example of that.
This is Neptune. The waviness reminds you of the ocean. And another thing about Neptune, it's an upright plant, which is nice for featuring in a pot. And then it also has a nice white back on it.
Really white background to the leaf, so any little bit of a breeze or anything that might move the leaves a bit, you would see that.
In the wild, the ones that have the white use that to reflect the sun off the cliffs where they grow.
Oh, wow.
So,
are these more sun tolerant then, or are they actually shady?
This is a blue one, so it does not tolerate the sun as much as a yellow one or a green would.
Sure. So they actually use that white backside of their leaf to sort of increase the amount of light they're able to get.
Yes.
So this variety that we're looking at now is Hosta First Frost.
Yes.
And how many years has this been in the ground, approximately?
This has been about 6 years.
Okay. So it's a nice medium-sized plant. So if people don't have a lot of room but want something that's really showy, this is a good one. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Proven Winners has just picked this up as part of their line, so it should be widely available.
And also, it keeps its color throughout the year.
Right, the variegation doesn't fade on it. Some of these hostas, when we get into the heat of the summer, the variegation tends to green out just a little bit.
Yes.
Certainly one of the brightest hostas in your garden is this beautiful variety called Sun Power.
Yes, and this yellow keeps its yellow throughout the year, where a lot of yellows will turn green before the season is over.
Right, so they come up really bright in the
Yes.
spring, but then as the summer progresses and the heat sets in, they tend to sort of lose their color. And I'm guessing that just by the name Sun Power, that maybe this is one of our hostas that's a little more sun tolerant.
This is. I have one in the front garden that gets afternoon sun for a couple of hours, and it maintains its shape and its vitality.
And its color just fine without burning
Yes.
or anything like that. And then another one that I noticed in the garden that is so beautiful is the variety Fragrant Bouquet. And we mentioned that, but tell me just a little bit more about that variety.
It comes out of the fragrant species Plantaginia, which is known as the August lily with the big giant flowers.
White flowers.
In August. And the flowers of Fragrant Bouquet are smaller, but they are really nice and fragrant. And they're also, the plant is variegated.
Okay. Well, certainly if you are a shade gardener, there is a hosta for you somewhere. They come in every size, every shape. Fragrance is what started it for Cornelia,
Yes.
and that has grown into a massive collection of plants, but not everybody has to have this.
Absolutely.
If you garden in a small space, you can garden just as well, and there's so much texture and color and variation in all of these plants now that I think anybody who has a little bit of shade in their garden can really enjoy hostas.
And can choose the number and the size to match their time.
Sure. We have a very special opportunity for those of you who live nearby. The American Hosta Society's National Convention is going to be here in Nashville in June, and Cornelia's Garden is going to be open during one day of the convention. For more information, visit our website at volunteergardener.org. Well, I want to thank you for letting us come and take just a little glimpse at your piece of Eden here today, and I hope we can come back and visit again.
Definitely.